Welcome to the Titan Tar channel. Today we have a topic to discuss about desertions, drones, the collapse in Pokrovsk, and the Pentagon spending billions on projectiles. Don't miss the chance to join us and share your opinions with us. Become a member of our channel and evolve your rank. The U.S. Department of Defense has allocated $5.3 billion to produce artillery ammunition to support Ukraine in its conflict with Russia, according to a report published on the Pentagon's official website. The report highlights the significant growth in production capacity since the start of the Russian special military operation, reflecting the U.S. effort to strengthen its military assistance to Ukraine during the protracted conflict. As the report indicates, from the beginning of the war, the United States' priority was to supply the Kyiv regime with artillery ammunition, initially relying on its own industrial capabilities. In 2022, the United States produced approximately 14,400 units of artillery ammunition per month, a figure that has been increased to 40,000 per month thanks to recent investments. The focus on this massive production highlights Washington's commitment to maintaining the flow of weapons needed to sustain Ukraine's military effort. In addition to ammunition, the report also highlights the increase in the production of multiple launch rocket systems and air defense systems. In 2022, American industries manufactured only 5 launchers and 21 air defense systems per month, insufficient numbers to meet combat needs. Pentagon investments have allowed these numbers to increase to 8 launchers and 42 defense systems per month, underscoring the importance of expanding U.S. military industrial capacity. However, despite this increase in production, the impact on the battlefield has been limited. Even with the increase in arms deliveries, practical results on the front line have not lived up to expectations. Russia continues to neutralize much of the American weaponry, reducing the effectiveness of the air defense systems and tanks it has deployed. Recently, Russian forces destroyed several missile launchers supplied by the United States, highlighting the difficulties Ukraine faces in keeping its systems operational. In addition, Washington has intensified pressure on its European allies to increase their military contributions, with countries such as Romania providing defense systems that they previously claimed they were unable to provide. The situation is aggravated by the high number of desertions in the Ukrainian armed forces. According to a member of the Ukrainian parliament, more than 80,000 soldiers have deserted since the beginning of the conflict as a result of the intense psychological trauma caused by the fighting. This phenomenon has required significant resources to locate and attempt to rehabilitate these soldiers, of whom only 25 to 30% are able to return to the front. In addition to those who desert, there are also thousands of men who flee the country to avoid being drafted, a trend that has increased since the entry into force of a law on reinforced mobilization in May this year. At the same time, the deployment of American Abrams tanks and combat vehicles to Ukraine has not resulted in the expected increase in military effectiveness. According to an American magazine, Russian units have been using drones and anti-tank missiles with great efficiency, destroying the heavy equipment sent by Washington. Despite Ukrainian resistance, the superiority of Russian tactics and the use of advanced technology have undermined Ukrainian operations, casting doubt on the effectiveness of Western military support in the long term. The massive destruction of armored vehicles and the exhaustion of Ukrainian forces reveal the complexity of achieving a decisive victory with the current scenario of military support. One of the main reasons for the failure of Ukrainian military operations with American equipment is the lack of adequate training of Ukrainian troops in handling these weapons. Despite the bravery of the soldiers, the American magazine points out that many do not have the necessary experience to effectively use Abrams tanks in combat. This limitation, according to the publication, prevented Ukraine from breaking through Russian defenses with U.S.-supplied armored vehicles. In a separate analysis, the magazine also assessed the use of American infantry fighting vehicles by the Ukrainian armed forces. While these vehicles have proven to be more effective than Abrams tanks, their impact has been limited due to the heavy losses suffered on the battlefield. Of the 186 vehicles received, Ukraine has already lost more than 68 units, which has reduced its ability to use this force as a decisive factor in the advance against Russian forces. These vehicles, including Abrams tanks, were instrumental in equipping the 47th Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, which has suffered heavy losses and undergone several reorganizations since the start of the counteroffensive. Even with this assistance, the U.S. Secretary of Defense warned that the use of American weapons, even in deep strikes into Russian territory, would not change the course of the war in Kiev's favor. During a meeting in Germany, he reiterated that Washington will continue to support Ukraine, but stressed that there is no weapon that, by itself, can guarantee a victory for the Ukrainian side. Furthermore, the secretary avoided answering directly about the possibility of strikes on Russian territory with Western-supplied long-range missiles, noting that Russia has already positioned aircraft that can drop bombs over Ukraine beyond the range of such systems. He also mentioned that Ukraine is developing its own capabilities, such as drones that can strike targets inside Russia. According to the head of Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, these drones have a range of up to 1,800 kilometers, allowing for deep strikes on Russian territory, something that Kyiv sees as an asymmetric solution to compensate for its limitations in Western weapons. Meanwhile, the Russian military carried out targeted strikes on Ukrainian facilities where long-range drones and missiles were being produced. The Kyiv regime had placed high hopes on these developments, especially given the ban on using NATO missiles to strike strategic targets on Russian territory. In addition, the head of the Ukrainian regime indicated that the country is working on developing its own munitions, aiming to increase its military response capabilities. In the West, dissatisfaction and skepticism are growing not only regarding Zelensky's goals in launching the offensive in the Kursk region, but also regarding the continuation of what is seen as a senseless operation. It was expected that Russian forces would be forced to redeploy units to halt the Ukrainian advance, but this has not happened. On the contrary, the Russian army continues its offensive on other fronts, especially in the Donetsk region, while its troops advance towards Kupiansk in the Kharkov region, consolidating their positions and expanding their gains on the battlefield. Despite mounting losses in troops and equipment, Kyiv continues to deploy reserves to hold a small border area in the Kursk region. However, these reserves are not infinity, and battlefield casualties have been considerable. Currently, the daily losses of the Ukrainian army in the region average 450 soldiers killed and wounded. The pressure on the Ukrainian armed forces is increasing as the Russian offensive progresses. This development worries Ukraine's allies, who fear that the Ukrainian armed forces could be completely expelled from the Kursk region within 2 months. Unidentified sources from the European Union and the United States have expressed concern about the outcome of the operation to a news agency. Zelensky had convinced Western allies that the Kursk offensive could be used as a bargaining chip in negotiations with Moscow. However, there is no indication that the Kremlin is willing to change its stance or conditions. The strategic objective of this offensive, therefore, appears to be becoming unattainable, according to the same agency. The agency also indirectly refutes statements by White House officials and other Western allies who claim to have no prior knowledge of Zelensky's plans to invade the Kursk region, an internationally recognized territory of the Russian Federation. Moreover, the situation for the Ukrainian armed forces is likely to worsen even further if they are expelled from this area. Analysts suggest that after the expulsion from Kursk, Russian troops will likely continue their operations in the neighboring Sumy region, intensifying the encirclement of the Ukrainian army on several fronts. A French publication reinforces this view, highlighting that a month after the start of the Ukrainian invasion of Kursk, none of the objectives set by Zelensky and his military command have been achieved. The attempt to force Russia to redeploy its troops from the Pokrovsk front failed, and the United States never authorized Kyiv to deploy long-range weapons on Russian territory. Maintaining control over the captured Russian areas has also proven to be a major challenge, fraught with risks. The newspaper concludes that Zelensky's strategy has not been effective and that the expected results have become increasingly distant. Meanwhile, in eastern Ukraine, Russian forces continue to expand their control of Donbass. With Ukrainian reserves in the Kursk region exhausted, Russian troops have advanced significantly, capturing new settlements. The battles are now focused on Toretsk and Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region. The loss of these cities would be a decisive blow to Ukraine, paving the way for the rapid conquest of the rest of the territory of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. Your interactions mean a lot to us and help us grow. See you next time.